Her heart stopped as she saw him, her ex Elijah, on the cold city sidewalk, holding a tattered sign. The neon lights glimmered around Mariah, elegant in her designer gown, yet all she could see was him, the boy she once loved, now broken and forgotten by the world. Shock froze her in place, memories flooding back, laughs, dreams, promises. The bustling city ignored him, but she couldn't. Determined, she stepped forward, refusing to let fate keep them apart. Tonight wasn't just a reunion. It was a beginning of redemption, love, and a second chance. The city lights shimmered like a sea of stars, each one reflecting the triumphs of a life she had fought tooth and nail to create. Mariah Kensington, now 32, moved through the towering glass halls of her penthouse with the kind of grace and poise that only wealth and power could sculpt. Every corner of her apartment spoke of success. Polished marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the skyline, and art pieces that cost more than most people's annual salaries. She had become a self-made billionaire, building an empire in the world of fashion and luxury lifestyle, a woman who commanded respect, admiration, and fear in equal measure. Yet beneath the polished exterior, beneath the carefully maintained smile, lingered memories that refused to fade. Memories of another life, one far removed from champagne flutes and red carpets. Memories of a young love that had once defined her, Elijah Carter. Elijah, even the name carried a weight, a gravity that pulled at her chest in ways no amount of money could silence. They had met when she was barely out of college, fresh-faced and ambitious, while he was a college student with big dreams but little opportunity. Elijah had been kind, with eyes that saw right through her carefully constructed walls, a smile that could melt the coldest corners of her heart. They had shared laughter, long walks under the dim streetlights, whispered promises in coffee shops that smelled of roasted beans and hope. But life had other plans. Mariah's drive for success, coupled with the pressures of a competitive world, had pushed them apart. Elijah had remained in their old neighborhood, trying to make ends meet, while Mariah had climbed the ladder of opportunity with relentless determination. The last time she had seen him, he had been full of hope, promising that their paths would cross again. She had smiled, hiding the pang of reality that whispered, "Sometimes dreams aren't enough." Tonight, however, she was not in her office. Tonight, she was out, attending a charity gala for one of her latest philanthropic ventures. The grand hall was filled with the elite of society, financiers, celebrities, and socialites draped in designer gowns and tailored suits. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the subtle tension of power, each person maneuvering for status, connections, or influence. Mariah moved like a queen among her court, exchanging pleasantries, accepting compliments with a polite smile, but her mind drifted, as it often did, to the past she had left behind. After the formalities, she stepped out onto the terrace for a breath of fresh night air. The city sprawled endlessly beneath her, lights twinkling like distant fireflies, a constant reminder how far she had come. She sipped her champagne, savoring the sharp, golden liquid, when movement caught her eye. A man, hunched and ragged, sat on the cold sidewalk a few blocks away, holding a tattered cardboard sign. The sight was common enough in the bustling city. Homelessness was a problem she had often thought about but never faced up close. But something about him made her pause. Her heart skipped. It couldn't be, could it? The man looked up, and the world seemed to constrict around her. The face was familiar, impossibly familiar. Eyes that once held warmth, laughter lines that had formed in perfect symmetry, a jawline that she could recognize even under grime and hardship. It was him, Elijah. Her Elijah. Her breath caught. The champagne almost slipped from her fingers. Time itself seemed to falter as she descended from the terrace, each step feeling surreal. She moved through the crowd, past the laughing guests, past the glittering chandeliers, until she stood before him. The city noise faded. All she could hear was the rapid pounding of her heart, the echo of memories long buried. Elijah? Her voice trembled, barely more than a whisper. The man looked up, startled. His eyes widened, searching her face. Recognition dawned slowly, painfully, like a sunrise cutting through fog. Mariah? His voice was hoarse, strained from hardship, but unmistakably his. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the chasm of years and experiences stretching between them. Elijah had once been vibrant, full of life and ambition. Now he was thin, his clothes torn, his skin weathered by the merciless streets. And yet, despite everything, she saw the same warmth in his eyes, the same unbroken spirit she had fallen in love with. Her legs felt unsteady, her hands trembling as she crouched slightly to meet his gaze. What happened?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the distant city sounds. Elijah looked down at his hands, calloused and dirt-stained. He swallowed hard. "Life happened," he said simply. There was no bitterness in his tone, no accusation, only truth, raw and unvarnished. I tried to make it. I really did. But it's been hard, Mariah. Harder than I ever imagined." Tears pricked at her eyes, unbidden and unwelcome. She had imagined this reunion countless times, but never like this, never seeing him like this. The man she had loved, who had once shared dreams of building a life together, reduced to surviving day by day on the unforgiving streets of the city. Her mind raced. She wanted to reach out, to hug him, to lift him out of this nightmare. But pride, his and hers, hung heavy in the air. She had built walls around her heart, and he had built walls around his reality. How could they bridge this divide, years and circumstances apart? Elijah finally spoke, his voice breaking the silence. "I didn't want you to see me like this," he said, almost apologetically. "I didn't want you to know that I failed." Mariah's chest ached. "You didn't fail, Elijah," she whispered, shaking her head. Life happened to all of us. It doesn't define who we are. Not you, not ever." He looked at her then, a flicker of the boy she had loved peeking through the hardship-hardened exterior. "And you've done so well. You're unbelievable," he said softly. "I remember when you dreamed about all this, and now—" His voice trailed off, choked with emotion. Mariah felt something shift inside her. Anger? Sadness? Guilt? All tangled together. She had climbed, fought, and conquered, yet here he was, standing in stark contrast to the life she had created. She reached out, hesitated for a heartbeat, then placed her hand over his. Warmth, real and alive, surged through her. "You're still the same Elijah I knew," she said firmly. "And I'm not going to let the world forget that. Not you, not ever." For a long moment, they sat there, the hum of the city around them fading into background. Two souls connected by memory, loss, and a spark that refused to die. And in that instant, Mariah realized that her world, the glittering, perfect world she had built, was about to change. Because some bonds, some loves, aren't erased by time, poverty, or hardship. They endure quietly, waiting for a moment like this to remind us who we truly are. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if she could save him, or if he even wanted saving. But one thing was clear. Her world had stopped, frozen in shock and recognition of the man she had loved and still loved, standing before her, a beggar on the street, yet more alive in spirit than she had ever realized. And that was only the beginning. The night air clung to Mariah's skin as she sat beside Elijah on the cold sidewalk, the city lights casting distorted shadows across his weathered face. Despite her success, despite the penthouses and luxury cars and boardroom conquests, this raw, unfiltered reality hit her harder than anything in her meticulously controlled world. She had imagined reunions with Elijah countless times, but never like this, never with him reduced to a mere shadow of the vibrant man she once knew. Elijah shifted uneasily, his gaze fixed on the cracked pavement beneath him. His hands trembled slightly as he clasped them together. "I guess you want to know how it all happened," he said quietly, almost to himself. Mariah nodded, though her throat tightened with fear. She wasn't sure she was ready to hear it, but she owed it to him and to herself to know the truth. "I was ambitious, you know," he began, voice rough from years of shouting against empty walls of indifference. "When you left, I thought I could make it on my own. I had dreams, big ones. I wanted to start my own company, make a name for myself, maybe even come back for you one day. But dreams are fragile." He paused, swallowing hard, eyes glistening with a pain Mariah hadn't seen before. "I got caught up in the wrong people. I thought I could trust them, that they wanted to help me. But greed is everywhere. I lost money, I lost friends, and I lost a chance to come back to you. I tried to keep going, but the doors kept closing. Jobs wouldn't hire me. People ignored me. And eventually, I was out on the street. Mariah felt a lump in her throat. She wanted to tell him he wasn't to blame, that circumstances weren't his fault, that the world was cruel. But those words fell hollow in the face of reality. Elijah's life had crumbled around him, and no amount of reassurance could rebuild it instantly. Do you hate me? She asked softly, barely above a whisper. Elijah looked up, startled by the question. A faint, ironic smile tugged at his lips. Hate you? No. How could I? You had your path, your life, and I had mine. It's not your fault I ended up here. Life just happens. Mariah's hand instinctively found his again, gripping it firmly. But you were never supposed to be here. You were supposed to... She stopped, her voice catching. To be with me. To have the life we dreamed about together. Elijah's eyes softened. And I still dream about it, he said, voice breaking. Every day. Every single day. But dreaming doesn't pay bills. Doesn't keep you alive when there's nothing in your pocket and nowhere to sleep. Doesn't stop the cold from biting through your clothes at night. She felt a sharp stab of guilt. She had spent years chasing wealth, fame, and power, building an empire from nothing, while the boy she loved had been fighting an invisible war she hadn't known existed. And now, seeing him like this, struggling, beaten by circumstance, her carefully constructed world seemed shallow and meaningless. For the first time, Mariah allowed herself to cry. Not tears of joy, but tears of raw, unfiltered pain. Pain for what had been lost, for the injustice of life, for the love that had endured despite everything. Elijah reached out, awkwardly placing his hand over hers, his touch gentle yet grounding. I never stopped caring about you, Mariah, he whispered. Even when I had nothing, even when I was alone, even when I thought I'd lost everything, I never stopped thinking about you. About us. Mariah's heart ached. The weight of the years apart pressed on her chest. She had conquered the world, but in this moment, she realized that true victory wasn't measured by money or status. It was measured by the people we love, the lives we touch, and the connections that survive time, hardship, and betrayal. Then we start again, she said suddenly, determination flooding her veins. Not the way we left it, but something new, something real. I'm not letting you stay here. Elijah, not if I can help it. Elijah's eyes widened, disbelief and emotion warring across his features. Mariah, I couldn't ask you to. You won't have to ask, she interrupted firmly. I'm not going to let you suffer alone. We'll figure this out, step by step, one day at a time. They sat there in silence for a moment, the city around them alive and buzzing, oblivious of the quiet vow being made on a cold sidewalk. It was a moment of fragile hope, a spark amid years of darkness. Elijah's story continued, unspooling like a tragic novel. He told her about the nights he spent in shelters, the hunger, the fear of violence, the shame of being invisible to the world he had once hoped to conquer. He spoke of lost friendships, betrayal, and the grinding despair that had chipped away at his confidence. Mariah listened, sometimes crying, sometimes holding him as he shook with suppressed sobs, feeling a mixture of sorrow, guilt, and overwhelming love. And then came the hardest part, the realization that the world had changed around them, but they had not. Mariah had become a symbol of success, a woman everyone envied. Elijah had become a symbol of failure, a man people ignored or judged harshly. And yet, despite these contrasts, they were still the same souls who had loved each other fiercely once upon a time. I never forgot, Elijah said finally, his voice trembling. Even when I was cold, even when I was hungry, I never forgot the way you looked at me, the way you believed in me when no one else did. Mariah's hands trembled as she brushed a strand of hair from his face. And I never stopped thinking about you, she admitted. Even when I was building my life, even when I was busy, there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't wonder what happened to you, where you were, if you were okay. For the first time since their reunion, Elijah allowed himself to hope. It was tentative, fragile, and scared of disappointment, but it was hope nonetheless. The spark that had once ignited their love now had a chance to burn anew, even in the midst of ruin. Mariah knew the road ahead would be difficult. She couldn't simply wave a hand and erase years of suffering, hardship, and struggle. She would have to rebuild his life, help him regain his dignity, and face the realities of the city that had nearly broken him. But she was determined. She had fought for everything else in her life. Why would she let love slip through her fingers now? As they sat together under flickering streetlights, Mariah realized something profound. Wealth, power, and fame were nothing without connection, without compassion, without the people who had shaped you and loved you. And Elijah was more than just a figure from her past. He was a reminder of the life she once dreamed about, and a chance to rediscover what truly mattered. The night deepened, and the city hummed on, unaware of the quiet reunion that had taken place on a forgotten street corner. Mariah and Elijah sat together, two souls battered by life but not defeated, beginning the slow, painful process of healing, forgiveness, and rekindling a love that had refused to die. And though the road ahead would be treacherous, one thing was certain. Neither of them would ever be the same again. The morning sun broke over the city skyline, casting golden light across the streets that had been Elijah's world for so long. Mariah sat across from him in a small, quiet cafe, her laptop open, her mind racing with plans and possibilities. The air smelled faintly of roasted coffee beans and pastries, a stark contrast to the cold, harsh streets where Elijah had spent his nights. Elijah watched her, a mix of awe, disbelief, and trepidation in his eyes. The penthouse, the luxury, the wealth, it had all been far beyond his imagination. And yet, here she was, not flaunting it, but using it to craft a lifeline for him, a bridge from the ruins of his past to a future he had never thought possible. "You don't have to do this, Mariah," he said quietly, stirring his coffee. His hands were still rough, scarred from the cold, and he tried to hide the tremor in his fingers. I don't know how to." Mariah held up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "Elijah, don't. This isn't charity. This isn't pity. This is helping someone I love. Someone who was always meant for more than the streets. You didn't fail, Elijah. Life failed you, and now we fix it." He swallowed hard, emotion choking his words. "I don't even know where to start," he admitted. "Step one," she said, her tone firm but encouraging, "is dignity. We get you back on your feet, physically, mentally, and emotionally. No shortcuts, no quick fixes. One day at a time." For the next few hours, Mariah and Elijah worked through the logistics. She helped him wash away the grime of months on the street, provided clean clothes that fit his tall frame, and guided him through meals that weren't hastily scavenged. Every small act was a reminder of a life he had lost and the new path he was now stepping onto. "You don't understand," Elijah murmured as he stared at his reflection in the polished mirror of Mariah's apartment. "I've been invisible for so long. I forgot what it felt like to look normal, to look like someone who matters." Mariah stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You do matter, Elijah. You always have. And I'm going to remind the world and you of that." Once he'd been cleaned up and dressed in well-fitted clothing, they began the next phase, rebuilding a professional life. Mariah's connections were vast. She knew influential people, powerful business figures, and friends in high places. She introduced Elijah slowly, carefully, ensuring that each encounter restored his confidence while shielding him from the pity he had grown accustomed to. At first, Elijah stumbled. Social situations felt unnatural. Conversations felt like performances, and the weight of his past threatened to crush him. But Mariah was patient, guiding him through each interaction, celebrating small victories. A smile returned, a handshake firmly made, a name remembered correctly. As days turned into weeks, Elijah began to regain his footing. He started small, taking on freelance consulting jobs that allowed him to rebuild his confidence and portfolio. Each completed project was a testament to his enduring talent and intelligence, a reminder that his dreams were never truly lost. Yet, despite progress, the emotional scars lingered. Every time Elijah saw a familiar street corner or a passerby who reminded him of his past hardships, a shadow fell across his spirit. He would flinch, tense, or retreat inward, as if the streets themselves were still holding him hostage. Mariah noticed, of course, and she refused to let him face these moments alone. "You survived the streets, Elijah," she reminded him one evening as they walked past the very corner where they had first reunited. "You've been through hell and came out alive. That's strength. That's resilience. Don't let the past scare you. It made you who you are today." He looked at her, eyes glistening. "I feel like I'm finally breathing again, but also scared. What if I fail again? What if this is just temporary?" Mariah smiled, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "Then we try again, and again, and again. Life doesn't forgive the timid, Elijah, but it rewards those who fight. And you, my love, have always fought." The transformation wasn't just professional. It was deeply personal. Elijah learned to reclaim his confidence, his posture, his voice. He laughed more freely, spoke with conviction, and gradually allowed himself to hope again. Mariah watched this transformation with a mixture of pride and relief, knowing that love and dedication could indeed heal wounds that time alone could never touch. But the world outside was not without its challenges. Some people were skeptical, others cruel. Friends and colleagues questioned how someone who had been gone for so long could suddenly reappear, polished and poised. Rumors swirled, whispers of pity disguised a concern. Judgments passed without understanding the journey he had endured. Elijah faced these obstacles with Mariah by his side, learning not only to navigate the professional landscape, but also to confront the societal biases and assumptions that had kept him invisible for so long. Each victory, no matter how small, fortified him. Every skeptical glance he overcame strengthened his resolve. And yet, amid all this rebuilding, the bond between Mariah and Elijah deepened. Their connection, forged in youth and tested by time, became a foundation for their renewed lives. Late nights were spent talking about dreams, hopes, and fears, while mornings brought shared coffees and tentative plans for the future. The love that had once been threatened by circumstance now flourished in resilience, proving that some bonds would withstand even the harshest trials. One afternoon, as they walked through a quiet park, Elijah turned to Mariah, his voice steady and filled with newfound determination. "Mariah, I want to do more than just survive. I want to thrive. I want to build again, this time, with you, not just for us, but for the people like me, people who've been overlooked, forgotten, underestimated. I don't want anyone else to feel invisible." Mariah's heart swelled with pride and admiration. "Then let's do it," she said. "Together, we'll create something bigger than just success. We'll create change, hope, and a life that means something." And so they planned, small initiatives first, then larger projects, gradually transforming not only Elijah's life, but also the lives of those around them. The streets that had once been his world now became a distant memory, a reminder of resilience, endurance, and the power of love to inspire reinvention. Through challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt, Elijah learned that failure was not final, and Mariah learned that wealth and power could be wielded with compassion. Together, they redefined success, not as a measure of money or status, but as the ability to rise, to rebuild, and to heal, no matter how deep the scars ran. By the time weeks had passed, Elijah was no longer the shadow of a man she had found on the street. He was a force, quietly confident, still humble but no longer hidden. And Mariah, too, had changed, her success now imbued with a purpose deeper than ambition, her heart open again to love she had never thought could endure. The city continued to bustle around them, oblivious to the quiet victories and personal triumphs that had taken place. But Mariah and Elijah knew, with unwavering certainty, that their lives had been irrevocably altered. They had faced the worst the world could offer, and yet, in each other, they had found strength, courage, and hope. And as the sun dipped below the skyline, casting long shadows across the streets, they walked forward together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges remained. Because love, resilience, and determination had given them something the world could never take away: each other. The city was alive with energy, yet for Mariah and Elijah, the world had narrowed to a sharp focus. Their shared mission, their rekindled bond, and the fragile yet growing sense of triumph. Months had passed since their reunion on that cold sidewalk. Elijah was no longer a man hidden in shadows. He reclaimed his dignity, rebuilt his life, and begun carving a path to the success he had once dreamed of. But life, as they both knew, never allowed smooth journeys without challenges. Their work together had begun modestly, a charitable initiative to provide mentorship and resources for people experiencing homelessness or struggling to find employment. Mariah's connections opened doors Elijah had once thought permanently closed, while Elijah's insights and experiences gave the program's authenticity and depth. The media caught wind of their project, painting stories of a billionaire and her former love united in a mission of hope. Headlines hailed them as visionaries, compassionate and unstoppable, but not everyone welcomed their presence. One evening, as Mariah prepared for a high-profile fundraising gala, Elijah's phone buzzed with an urgent message. A former business rival, sensing his sudden resurgence, was attempting to discredit him, spreading false claims about his past and questioning his credibility. Elijah's heart sank. Years of struggle could be undermined in hours. He looked to Mariah, panic flickering in his eyes. "We've faced worse," she said firmly, gripping his hand. "This isn't about wealth or power. It's about truth, resilience, and what we built together. You won't let them define you. I won't let them define you." At the gala, they confronted the challenge head-on. Mariah spoke first, her voice calm yet commanding as she addressed a crowd of influential figures. She detailed Elijah's journey, emphasizing his intelligence, resilience, and injustice he had faced. Then Elijah, steady now, spoke from the heart, recounting his hardships and triumphs, illustrating how every setback had prepared him for this moment. The room was silent as his words sank in. What had been intended as an attack became a testament to the human spirit. Applause erupted, genuine and powerful, washing away the whispers of doubt. Elijah had reclaimed not only his dignity, but the respect of everyone in the room. Outside the gala, as the city sparkled below, Elijah turned to Mariah, awe and gratitude in his eyes. "You saved me," he said quietly, "not just from the streets, but from the fear that I would never rise again." Mariah shook her head, smiling through tears. "No, Elijah, you saved yourself. I just helped you remember who you really are." Their journey wasn't only professional, it was intensely personal. Together, they faced old wounds, unresolved fears, and lingering insecurities. Each step forward strengthened their bond, teaching them that love and resilience were not just about surviving hardship, but thriving despite it. Their relationship became a symbol of hope, not just for themselves, but for everyone who had been overlooked, underestimated, or abandoned by circumstance. Months later, Elijah stood in front of a new office, the doors marked with his name, Carter and Kensington Innovations. A fusion of his talents and Mariah's resources, the firm focused on empowering communities, creating opportunities for the marginalized, and turning past struggles into actionable solutions. He turned to Mariah, her hand in his, and smiled with a confidence born from struggle and triumph alike. "You've given me everything," he said softly, "and I promise we'll make sure no one else has to go through what I did. Together, we'll create something that lasts, something meaningful." Mariah squeezed his hand. "And we will, but remember, it's not about perfection. It's about courage, persistence, and never giving up on what matters." The city around them buzzed, oblivious to the quiet revolution these two had ignited. Together, they had turned despair into hope, loss into opportunity, and struggle into triumph. Elijah, once a beggar on the street, was now a leader, a man whose experiences gave him the power to inspire and uplift. Mariah, once consumed by ambition, had rediscovered love, compassion, and profound joy of helping someone rise to their full potential. In the evenings, they would walk through the streets that had once been Elijah's prison, now transformed into symbols of resilience and possibility. They laughed, planned, and dreamed together, knowing that their past had shaped them, but it did not define them. Every challenge they had faced had become a stepping stone toward a future that was brighter, more fulfilling, and deeply meaningful. One night, as they overlooked the glittering skyline from the rooftop of their office building, Elijah turned to Mariah. "Do you remember that first night when you found me on the street?" he asked. Mariah nodded, her eyes glistening. "I'll never forget it. That was the night my world stopped, and the night it started again." Elijah smiled, taking her hand. "And now we move forward, together, As the city lights reflected in their eyes, they realized that their journey had not been about wealth, power, or status. It had been about love, resilience, and the unyielding belief in each other. They had faced the harshest trials, survived betrayal, poverty, and doubt, and emerged stronger, united, and ready to face the future. And in that moment, standing hand in hand above the city, Mariah and Elijah knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together. Because some loves are eternal, some bonds unbreakable, and some journeys, though harrowing, lead to triumph, redemption, and a life more extraordinary than either had ever dreamed. Their world, once fractured, was now whole. And this time, it was a world they would navigate as equals, partners, and soulmates, ready to turn every challenge into a story of victory, hope, and unending love.